Dave Thomas. It's still training camp reports for the Red Zone Sports Bar behind the Saskatoon Travel Lodge. Dave, over the telephone today here, you're with the professor, as you can hear. Is fair to say the Winnipeg, what did you call it, a schlunky product?
Well, it was a schlunky video product, yes. And the play-by-play team wasn't as good as what we're used to here.
No, Dave, listen to that. What's your comments on that, Dave? Dave's not there. We got nobody now. We got no stream.
Boy, he had no comment.
Dave. Speaking of schlunky products, you jinxed us.
Dave was commentless.
The sheriff is. We're looking, trading him to Winnipeg. He's having troubles over there. He'll be with us right away. First off, we talked about this yesterday. Were you surprised they kept Harrison that long?
I was.
On the road?
I would say, we've got the thumbs up. But we're no longer schlunky here, Barney. I was surprised. I was surprised he even played. But, the coach knows best, and he wanted him to have some reps with some receivers and whatnot. And I think what happens is Harris is pounding on the coach's door 24/7. I want to play. That's just his nature. So probably the coach decided it might not be a bad idea and gave in a little bit to the quarterback. I don't know.
I was really surprised they played him on the road. Then I was surprised that he played into the end of the first quarter, and I don't know if you think he got a few in the second there, but that he played that much. All right, we paid our bills. We got our prepaid phone card working. Dave is on the Western Pizza guest hotline. David, you're there. So, hey, it's live radio. It's how it goes. How was things today? Roughrider training camp at Mosaic Stadium, Dave.
Oh, I thought this was the number to call in for the country cookout. I must have the wrong place. No, you know what? Kidding aside, it was a perfect day not to be spraying in the fields. I'll tell you that right now. It was gusting and blustery all the way around Mosaic Stadium. It was sunny. It was warm. So it was a good day to put the punters to the test, and so they did do that in a great deal and great capacity today. Also, the offense and defense squared off against one another, and we also learned some injury news as well today.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, the Roughriders until today, I believe, Dave, it's Don here, didn't say anything about the extent of Sean McEwen's injury. So what did they say today?
Well, Coach Corey Mace came out and was asked point blank. We've asked him a number of times kind of the extent of the injury. You knew it was a serious injury when he really didn't want to talk about it because he is so invested in his players and his family atmosphere that you can tell when there's some bad news that he doesn't always come out and say it right away until everything is I's dotted, T's crossed. But we do have some audio to hear it straight from the coach's mouth.
He ended up, dealing with an ACL deal, so it's unfortunate. But he had a healthy surgery yesterday. Checking in, I think I caught him right in the recovery room, so I don't know if the meds totally wore off yet. So he said it was good.
ACL.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you've got the ACL, so he's had the surgery. You've also got a torn bicep by Gagnon. Has he already had the surgery, Dave?
It doesn't sound like he's going to need or require surgery. Okay. It's not going to shorten the time that recovery will be, but it sounds like he will be able to avoid surgery on that one.
So he could be back when? 1st of October, or is there any timeline for Gagnon?
No timeline. From what I've been told is that it's a very individual recovery time, so it can vary from, it could be October, it could be November, it could be season ending. So they haven't ruled him out for the season just yet, but they definitely aren't looking to him anytime soon.
I'm just thinking about what the legendary Don Matthews used to say, and you guys remember Don Matthews. I think, what is he, number 2 to wins to Wally Bono, I believe, in the CFL. And, he always used to say, I will never have physical training camps. I will never have physical practices, but I'll have very physical games. And it seemed like when, and just watching your work, Dave, up in Saskatoon, it seemed like when Mace was talking about Gagnon, he made sort of a little comment, we have to be a little bit more careful. Now, I'm not blaming the drills and what they're doing necessarily at all on these two injuries, but I am saying that they've had some problems over a number of years now, getting out of training camp, not losing starters. Do you think there's any possibility that Coach Mace might think about maybe being a little less physical in practice, or is that wrong that they even need to be less physical in practice?
As far as from what I can tell, now trust me, I don't want to be anywhere near the physicality of the stuff that they do on the field. I'm quite happy with my seat in the stands. But
yeah.
There is so much, there is competition, there is pride, there is, you name the emotion and the adjective when it comes to the Roughriders right now in camp, because they're dialed in, right? And they want to make sure that they're ready, they're right, and they're also competing, because Coach Mace has been pretty blunt along the lines of saying you have to earn a spot still. Like, yeah, we may have a continuity when it comes to the roster. You still need to earn that spot. So I would suggest that when he said we had to be smart in that instance, is that, the players have to dial back a little bit. Again, they're not exceedingly physical drills. Like, they're normally what we saw, like year over year, they're very much the same thing. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the athletes themselves need to police it themselves so that they're not hurting one another. Like, there's a number of times where you've heard it over your career as well, right? Get up, get up, get up, stay up, stay up, stay up is the communication given to players when they're running with the football, so on and so forth. And there's a number of times that stops and has to be reiterated by the coaching staff.
The one thing, and talking to Dan Farthing last year, I'm just going to go out on a limb here. It's something, though, athletes nowadays. I remember last year when I was talking to Dan Farthing, I said, what's with the Achilles injuries? Like the last 10, 15 years. It's almost like we see more Achilles injuries than we ever have. Remember covering sports back in the day? It wasn't Achilles. Yeah, there was broken bones and there was different things. And then, the bicep. It's too bad I don't have Harry coming on this week, because he's torn biceps twice. So I remember reading it up. If you need surgery, you're definitely kaput for the season. So this, with Dave saying not going to need surgery, now it can be anything. Like, it could be long. It could be. I've luckily, knock on wood, never torn a bicep. I feel like a lot of times, though, it's just how the training is maybe different this, in this day and age. The supplements. There's a lot of things. Yeah, these guys can get cut quick. They can put things in their body. They can build strength. Is that maybe weakening some tendons, some different things like that?
Point.
You never know. Back in the day, it was like some darts and a Pilsner, and get some training in, and like Glenn Suter's coming on later. I don't know. It seems different, and injuries. I think it's unfortunate. You're starting to see it at a younger age too, with a lot of kids, and then obviously with kids, concussions are the big thing. Those Guardian caps that they're wearing. My kids asked me the other day, like, why do they all have those on? I'm like, well, protecting the head, right? Like, it makes sense. So maybe there's something to do with how they train, what they're putting in their bodies, that now the muscles or the tendons are more prone to have injury. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not a doctor. I wish I was. What about today at practice, Dave, on the field? Windy. What would you do? The short passes, I would suspect. Maybe some long passes down fan. Those are always tough to throw. What did you see from there? And then did Coach Mace talk about it at all?
Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, offensively, Trevor Harris threw and connected on a very nice ball to Dante Myers. There was a nice reception that was kind of made over the middle by Thomas Bertrand-Houdon, where you could see that they were going ahead and actually setting up kind of a screenplay in front of them. That looked very promising defensively. There were some players that made some great stops, including the 6th-round draft pick of the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Gideon Auger. He made a great interception late in the period today. So both sides of the ball went ahead and did that. Special teams, though, was a big focus today. Punters were punting the ball over and over and over again. And again, whether it was Joe Couch, he would hammer and get that ball down the field real quick. But then also right away, Bailey Flint would come back and he'd hammer one. But then in the next rep, it was inconsistent at best is the way I would describe it, because they were trying to hammer the ball into the wind and place it where they wanted, and it wasn't going entirely, like there wasn't an outright winner, if you will. But I guess that leads to Coach Mace saying right at the end of the practice that when it comes to the remainder of the week, there is a game on Friday, but there's a ton of things that need to be decided first.
You know, we've been very straightforward from the first day of camp. That every group is in competition, and there's still some very tight battles at multiple groups. So we'll have guys out there that are going to be competing their tails off to get those spots.
And then Coach Mace, I see here he talks about how do you balance evaluation and preparation for the rest of the week.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, there'll be a mix of, just like last week, you know, I thought we had a healthy mix of some starters and some young guys. You know, it'll be the same. You know, whoever's going to be out there, the preparation is executing the expectations of what we look for in all phases of the football. So, you know, regardless of who it is or what quarter it's in, who's in there, we're evaluating the exact same thing. You got a job to do, and we want to see you do it.
Yeah. What do you get a gauge at all? I know we're only sitting in Tuesday. Do you get a gauge at all of how many vets will play at home this weekend?
See, and I keep fluctuating in my analysis because I keep thinking, okay, they're going to rest. They're going to get the starters maybe a series or two, but then they're going to take them off the field so that they can rest, recuperate, and be ready to go for week one. But then you start to see some battles that are happening on the field, like Hava Baldonado is taking reps at defensive end in the absence of Shane Ray, but then the next thing you know, all of a sudden jumping in is Aaron Patrick. So you wonder, okay, maybe they're going to get a little longer look than what we had anticipated. I think for Trevor Harris, I would be surprised if he plays anything more than a quarter. But again, Coach Mace has got the master plan, and he's done it well so far. So who am I to question or probably even guess at this point?
Anybody not on the field of note today?
Well, offensive lineman Eric Anderson hasn't practiced in Regina yet. Of course, he was the draft pick of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, second rounder. He's got a hip injury, so he's nursing that. Charbel DeBeer, we saw up in Saskatoon, left the field in the midst of a workout after seemingly tweaking his knee, and that seems to be the instance. They're going ahead and doing more imaging on him to see whether or not it's a substantial knee injury like he suffered last year or just a tweak, so that is ongoing. Nelson LeCombo didn't practice for a second day in a row. He was on the sideline, though, working out. Alex Governor, the defensive lineman, he didn't practice today. Demir Thurman had a hat on, as did Shane Ray. So those are the key guys that weren't suited up for practice today.
Now, you mentioned earlier, Dave, Gideon O'Shea, is that how you say it last name, O'Shea? The corner from the Dinosaurs that the Riders picked, you said in the 6th round, I think that's right. Now, people in Calgary have told me what an athletic freak he actually is. He's just has some rawness to him, but he's got really long arms, he's got great speed, he's got good hips. Is he getting any better in practice, or talk about him? Because people in Calgary said that they felt Saskatchewan might have gotten a sleeper pick.
Oh, you're right. 6th round, 52nd overall. The Riders, from what I understand, like what they see. Again, a big body, 6'2", 189 pounds. And he knows the Canadian game, so that puts him ahead of the American defensive backs that are new and into the system, I would suggest. And, yeah, he does seem to progressively get better through camp. And today his interception was just a nice read. He went up, he made a play, saw an underneath play developing, read Jack Cohn's eyes, stepped in front of the receiver, and made the pick. So he continued. Again, you're right. He absolutely continues to impress and improve, which I think are the two keys that you want from a 6th-round draft pick that maybe Jeremy O'Day found another steal with in 2025.
Good question. Good insight, Dave. All right. Know you got to get going here. We'll hopefully catch up with you in hour 2 for more of the training camp report. Maybe an hour or 2. We'll go over Tommy Stevens and that interview that you had with him.
Very interesting insight coming up from him for sure. I look forward to it. Talk to you then.
Okay. See you, Dave. Of the Riders is back with us. Dave, we talked with Don Hewitt in hour 1. A windy day. Always challenging for it because, hey, if you live in Saskatchewan, you live in Regina, the wind is a thing. I was actually joking with a guy yesterday. It's like, how many nice days do you think we get in the city to golf? Like in 365 days, 15, 20, where there's like no wind, really nice. But when it comes to football, Throwing is tough in the wind. Catching is tough in the wind. Kicking, definitely tough in the wind. And long snapping would be a little bit tricky in the wind, too.
Absolutely, right? Think about it. If it's a crosswind, right, you're trying to zip that football back like Jorgen Hughes does and get the laces where he does. According to Kent Majuri, about 96% of the time, Jorgen Hughes has got the laces where the kickers want them when they're receiving that, whether that's a punter holding for a field goal. So it's pretty remarkable. And when you're speaking of wind, okay, so at Old Taylor Field, right?
Yep.
It was a wind tunnel, just would gust, right? There was really no wind advantage, was there? Like if you had the wind, you had the wind.
Well, it was there. Yeah, exactly. There was no funneling.
No. At New Mosaic Stadium, I had an amazing conversation with Brett Lawther, which we'll get to later on this week. But we were talking about the wind at Mosaic Stadium. And if you watch Brett, a lot of times he's kicking in warm-ups into the north end zone. And then when it comes time, teams period, whatever the case may be, he's kicking into the south end zone. Reason being is that the way that the wind swirls by the Maxtron, it is much more difficult, and it actually can swirl the opposite direction from the field. And if you're not aware of that when it gets up, because you may not feel that in your face when you're going to kick, if you're not aware of that, then it adjusts and affects the kick, right? So amazing conversation. He said, a lot of people don't know that. Like when you're kicking into the south end zone, that's a huge factor. And he goes, for us, that's our home field advantage because nobody gets a chance to practice in it like I do.
Would there be, now that you've been to kind of all the stadiums in the league, what would be one that is Winnipeg the most, I guess, comparable to what we have here in Sasky, or which one would you say?
Yeah, Winnipeg would be the most comparable. When it comes to weird wind conditions, I'd actually throw Commonwealth Stadium into that mix. Oh. It's tricky in Toronto because the wind is coming right off the lake, right? Because that's where BMO Field is. But at Commonwealth Stadium, you can see the flags at the top of the grandstand on the other side, the side opposite from you. And like halfway they're going to the north and the other half are going to the south.
Oh, that would throw a guy for a loop. That's
yeah. And then last year there was the infamous rain going up in Ottawa, which I won't live down because apparently it's not scientifically capable, but whatever. I saw what I saw.
He's standing by it. I'm not letting it go. Okay, so we've talked positions here, and with Don Hewitt earlier. I said, like, when we talked to Tommy Stevens in the winter, right after the Riders signed him, great interview, had him on. He was pretty adamant that, like, at some point I want to prove that I can sling the football. Played at a good school, played in a good conference, all that. You had a chance to talk to him and have an interview with him.
Yeah, absolutely I did. Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted me to talk or not. But yeah, absolutely I had a chance to have a conversation with him. As you mentioned, he wants to prove that he's a passer in this league. Today at training camp, it looked like there's a specific package that is designed for him to run, with a lot of RPO, a lot of rollouts. Again, they almost practiced a third down play today at practice, which never happens. So Tommy Stevens has been very active at camp. And like I said, I had a chance to catch up with him and talk about his experiences in Riderville thus far. Tommy, the smile on your face can't be replaced to be out on the field in Regina. What is it like bringing training camp back home to Mosaic Stadium?
Yeah, it's. I feel like the place gets nicer every time I'm here. So glad to call it home now. It's a beautiful stadium with people in it, obviously, but even without, this is the first time being in here without it, and it's just as nice. Blown away by everything. It's top down, first class organization. It's all been great. So very very thankful to be here and happy to be a part of it.
You're a couple of weeks into your tenure as being a Saskatchewan Roughrider. What has your overall impression been, especially when you've gone through camp in Saskatoon?
Well, you hear from guys in the league that have been here, former teammates obviously that I've had in the past that just rave about the place. But it's really hard to describe it without being here and actually feeling it. And so, I came in with high expectations, and from everything that everybody's already told me, and still blown away by how great everything is. I've got nothing to complain about. So it's been great, man.
You told us when you signed that you were here to compete as a quarterback. You can throw the ball. We've seen that. We've seen the athleticism in your tapes all over the place. How has that progression gone with Mark Mueller and the offense and getting acclimatized to that?
Yeah, it's, obviously it's going to take some, I guess what we like to call growing pains, because it's been a while. Like I haven't spent a lot of time running the offense, even though that I've been in it for, 4 years now. It's obviously a little bit different when you're actually running it. And so, there's been, a couple practices where, you unfortunately throw the ball right to the other team and, you kind of just got to go through that kind of stuff. But it's good to, get those, things out of the way and learn from them, right? So, all in all, I think that it's been a really productive camp. I think it's been my favorite camp so far in the CFL, and I feel like I've grown a lot from it so far.
You talk about learning and growth. Your opportunity came late in the fourth quarter, down by 6 points. Ice cold. Well, maybe not ice cold. You got in on a couple of plays before that. What's it like coming off the bench into that situation?
And it's just here we go. You don't really get to choose your hand, right? So that was the opportunity I was given. Tried to make the most of it. Obviously, we came up a little bit short, but we were able to put some things on tape, and all in all, obviously there's a lot to learn from. But those experiences mean something, even if it's just a preseason game. It was important to me. Guys on the team, we wanted to win, and going to bring the same energy again this weekend. Hopefully, come out with a win.
The stats that you released on your third down efficiency are through the roof. How do you get so good at that when you really can't practice it?
I think it's just all around buy-in from the unit. I think that everybody needs to buy in, because all it takes is one guy to mess up on his job for the play to be a disaster. So yeah, I think that the coaches that we had in the past were able to put us in a good situation as far as the short yardage. But at the end of the day, it all came down to execution, and I thought that we did a very good job for my tenure there, and hoping to build off of that here.
It's very evident the chemistry that you and Jake Mayer have. You can see it on the field, throwing the rock around, talking with one another. But how is it building with the other two, Jack Cohn and Trevor Harris?
I think it's been awesome getting to know both of them. They've both been very welcoming to us. They welcomed us with open arms, and I think that in order to have a successful quarterback room, you need to be able to throw ideas at each other, help out, give your insight when asked. Obviously, you don't want to come in as the new guy and start talking too much, right? But that's been a really good thing that Trevor and Jack both have opened that door for us to share our opinions. And because at the end of the day, it's pro football, right? We've all had similar experiences, different paths, but I know both those guys have both played big time football, and just being able to help, having a healthy room is obviously important, not only for our room, but for the offensive unit and all around our whole team. So it's been great.
As we inch closer to the regular season, then what does Tommy Stevens need to do to be ready?
Keep taking it day by day. We got practice tomorrow, so just been worrying about that.
I gotta see this guy up close, right? Like 6'5", what it's listed online, 6'5", 237. Is that accurate?
Yeah, pretty bang on, and he can move, right? Like he can move. Like he is a load to bring down, but he can move. And from what I've seen, very smart, very intelligent. He's picked up the offense well. He's studying well. Like there's so many things that he's doing well right now, and we kind of talked about this on the broadcast on the weekend, right? You want to make them cut you. Don't cut yourself. Make them cut you. And for Tommy Stevens, he's done everything that he's been asked of and more.
Yeah. Can't see that. Just such a weapon, right? Like a useful tool now. And now, like 10 years ago, no, because no one was doing this. But now in the league, you got this. You got that short yardage. And you're saying they're working on their short yardage packages today. Who knows what can come from it? Like there's always an evolution to game planning, to systems, right? Maybe he's not always going to run. Maybe they are going to throw a different wrinkle in, and we don't have to give that away. And you're at practices, but you just never know with a guy like that.
No, and again, what does Luke always say? Your best ability is your availability. And he's been available to do anything that's been asked of him. He hasn't been returning punts like Darian Durant mentioned yesterday, but he's been doing it all.
Luke really needs to just write wall art and have it available to buy places. People can put it up in their kitchen. Yeah. All right. Let's regroup in hour 3. Thanks for hopping on, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk in a bit.
Dave Thomas is back in. He's putting in long days. Training camp is almost over, and then it's On to the regular season, Dave. Just to recap for people that weren't listening, Coach Mace did give us a little bit of an update on Sean McEwen.
Yeah, Sean McEwen underwent ACL surgery yesterday, and he spoke with him after he came out, was in recovery, but it's an ACL injury, and of course, surgery means that it's going to be a while, is what the Riders said, and of course, not the worst case scenario. You got to feel for the guy that was coming into Saskatchewan. They signed him off of after 8 years with Calgary and Toronto, and unfortunate that it happens the first patented practice up in Saskatoon.
Today, and then I asked you in hour one, and there's a lot of people driving home and, are out seeding and didn't catch hour one. Players that weren't on the field today.
It's the list, unfortunately, is starting to get longer. As, of course, Philippe Gagnon did not practice, nor did offensive lineman Eric Anderson, our second-round draft selection. He's dealing with a hip injury. Charbel DeBeer, of course, missed most of last season with a knee hurt. He tweaked it again. They're getting more imaging on him, so he did not participate again today. Nelson Lacombe was fairly active along the sidelines, but did not participate. Alex Gubner, who is a defensive lineman, who I thought played very well. He was actually in a walking boot today, so that's not good news. Linebacker Jameer Thurman didn't participate, nor did defensive lineman Shane Ray.
There's the rundown. You were saying today there were some packages. We heard the Tommy Stevens interview in hour two. People can go back and listen to that in the podcast if they want. Some short yardage packages, I guess, obviously for him. Some things. Probably a good day to work on stuff like that because it was so bloody windy.
Yeah, well, it was. And, I don't think that deterred or affected the Riders' plans at all for their practice today. But yeah, Tommy Stevens was given, it looked to me like a package designed for him, right? So he comes in and maybe he'll operate a play out of the shotgun. Maybe he'll have a receiver cutting underneath. Yeah, again, just different options. Obviously, the Riders aren't going to show absolutely everything that they're doing, but he was at the helm for some specialized plays that I would suggest would likely be used on short yardage situations.
You had a chance to catch up with OC Mark Mueller.
Yeah, well, second year on the job for the Regina native, and you know what, him and Corey Mace have got such great chemistry when it comes to working together, and they put their noses down over the offseason and made sure that they were able to maximize what they're able to bring into camp this year. And you hear that, you feel that from the players. Now, of course, didn't score a touchdown in the opening preseason game, so has that deterred him or not? Well, I wanted to get his feelings on everything that's happening with the offense and spoke with him after camp.
I know how meticulous you are in your preparation and for where you want to be. So are you there right now?
Oh, we're getting there. I think the guys are really working hard. And, the thing is, you never really get there, but you work as hard as you can to be in a place. And then the plays always evolve. You get different looks, different scenes, different reactions from the defense, they might not have thought of. So it was good. I mean, we're getting good things on film to teach from and learn from. And then hopefully when the Friday night we can build on it.
When you're looking at that film, is it easier to evaluate a practice play or a live game film rep?
It's always better live. It's always better for the games because you know how guys truly react, whether they're reacting a different way because it's new defense to them or new offense to us. But you never get anything like live reps, and live reps are better for everyone, especially in the box.
I don't know how you kept it together last year when you're starting 13 different offensive linemen. There's a lot of ho-hum, oh no, here we go again. And that might have happened after week one of camp when two veterans go down. But tell me about the offensive line that this team has and maybe some of the depth.
Yeah, I think that the big thing is that whoever's here, we trust them to play or else they wouldn't be here. And I think that Jeremy and Kyle and those guys do a really good job of getting us players that we think can play in the CFL. And if they're here and they're the next man up, they're in, and we trust those guys to play. You play with the guys you have, and you make sure that they can be the best versions of themselves. That's what coaches are for. If it wasn't for things like that, then we wouldn't need coaches, right? So, those guys work really hard. I really enjoy working with that group. I think they're very professional and very well tight knit, I guess would be the term. But I think those guys enjoy coming to work too, which makes a big difference for them as well.
Your quarterback room seems extremely tight-knit as well, and the word that you used was trust. And Trevor has talked about that, the trust that there is between quarterbacks and offensive coordinator. It obviously has to go two ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you always want to be an extension of each other. I mean, I think that the person that gets looked towards the most other than the head coach is the quarterback. So the quarterback has to be an extension of not only the head coach and what he wants the team to be, but also we need to be extensions of each other when we're game planning and when we're running the plays.
I don't know how difficult of a job it is. Well, I do know how difficult of a job it is going to be when you have to decipher what you're going to do with your receiving core, but boy, you've got a very deep group, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's, it can be said about every position on the team, but especially, like you said, receiver and offense. Offense, we have good players and guys that have good camps, and, usually you play those 2 preseason games and it kind of, separates because there's nothing like, the live reps. You can kind of peek ahead and understand what plays are going to be ran that day in practice, but during the game, you got the whole catalog worth of plays you can run. So, and you got to understand the tempo of the game. It's live. So that's why we have the preseason games.
The Canadian Air Force, that group of receivers really was its own era of Saskatchewan Roughrider football. You have a pretty good talent when it comes to Canadian receivers. How has that evolution gone, and what do you see from the group that's here?
Well, I think that the key about the group is that we just play the guys that give us, the 5 guys that give us the best chance to win. And I think whatever they are, whether it's Canadian or American or global guys or whatever it is, that those guys play well with each other and they accept a role and they kind of fit into it. And we try to move those guys around to keep them, in different spots as well. So I think that all those guys work really hard, and the evolution of that from us is just that we have the flexibility roster-wise to play the best guys.
So the last question when it comes to the receivers for me is that as a fan, I can see, okay, a guy made a play, he caught a pass, he's running far, he's doing well. What are you looking for that separates receivers from one another?
Well, I think for us, it's, a lot of it, we put a lot on our receivers mentally, but also physically as well. We block with our receivers quite a bit. So you can't just be the guy running, and catching corner routes or dig routes. That's a key part of it, obviously. It's a big part of the job. But, we talk about the pass game, it takes all 12 to get a guy open, especially in this league. It takes 12 guys to, the pass blocking, the quarterback, the back, those guys all doing the right thing, and then your guy next to you doing the right thing. So it's, are you sound? Are you in the right spot?
Some technical difficulty. I don't know if you could you hear that, Dave? You can't hear me. Yeah, we're efforting to fix. Let's just go to break here. We'll try and figure out our things. We'll play that Mueller interview in its entirety when we can. Still 1-0 at the Memorial Cup. London's up on Medicine Hat. It is the Sports Cage on this Tuesday for Saskatchewan Lotteries, streaming at sportscage.com. Sorry about that, the technical difficulties go along with live radio. That's okay, though, because we are going to play that Mark Mueller interview that Dave had a chance to talk to him in its entirety right now.
I know how meticulous you are in your preparation and for where you want to be, so are you there right now?
Oh, we're getting there. I think the guys are really working hard. And, the thing is, you never really get there, but you work as hard as you can to be in a place. And then the plays always evolve. You get different looks, different scenes, different reactions from the defense, they might not have thought of. So it was good. I mean, we're getting good things on film to teach from and learn from. And then hopefully when the Friday night, we can build on it.
When you're looking at that film, is it easier to evaluate a practice play or a live game film rep?
It's always better live. It's always better for the games because you know how guys truly react, whether they're reacting a different way because it's new defense to them or new offense to us. But you never get anything like live reps, and live reps are better for everyone, especially in the box.
I don't know how you kept it together last year. When you're starting 13 different offensive linemen, there's a lot of ho-hum, oh no, here we go again. And that might have happened after week 1 of camp when 2 veterans go down. But tell me about the offensive line that this team has and maybe some of the depth.
Yeah, I think that the big thing is that whoever's here, we trust them to play or else they wouldn't be here. And I think that Jeremy and Kyle and those guys do a really good job of getting us players that we think can play in the CFL. And if they're here and they're the next man up, they're in, and we trust those guys to play. You play with the guys you have, and you make sure that they can be the best versions of themselves. That's what coaches are for. If it wasn't for things like that, then we wouldn't need coaches, right? So, those guys work really hard. I really enjoy working with that group. I think they're very professional and very well tight knit, I guess would be the term. But I think those guys enjoy coming to work too, which makes a big difference for them as well.
Your quarterback room seems extremely tight knit as well, and the word they used was trust. And Trevor has talked about that, the trust that there is between quarterbacks and offensive coordinator. And obviously has to go two ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you always want to be an extension of each other. I mean, I think that the person that gets looked towards the most other than the head coach is the quarterback. So the quarterback has to be an extension of not only the head coach and what he wants the team to be, but also we need to be extensions of each other when we're game planning and when we're running the plays.
I don't know how difficult of a job it is. Well, I do know how difficult of a job it is going to be when you have to decipher what you're going to do with your receiving core. But boy, you've got a very deep group, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's, it can be said about every position on the team, but especially, like you said, receiver and offense. Offense, we have good players and guys that have good camps. And, usually you play those two preseason games and it kind of, separates because there's nothing like, the live reps. You can kind of peek ahead and understand what plays are going to be ran that day in practice. But during the game, there's, you got the whole catalog worth of plays you can run. So, and you got to understand the tempo of the game. It's live. So that's why we have the preseason games.
The Canadian Air Force, that group of receivers really was its own era of Saskatchewan Roughrider football. You have a pretty good talent when it comes to Canadian receivers. How has that evolution gone, and what do you see from the group that's here?
Well, I think that the key about the group is that we just play the guys that give us, the five guys that give us the best chance to win. And I think whatever they are, whether it's Canadian or American or global guys or whatever it is, that those guys play well with each other and they accept a role and they kind of fit into it. And we try to move those guys around to keep them, in different spots as well. So I think that all those guys work really hard, and the evolution of that from us is just that we have the flexibility roster-wise to play the best guys.
So the last question when it comes to the receivers for me is that as a fan, I can see, okay, a guy made a play, he caught a pass, he's running far, he's doing well. What are you looking for that separates receivers from one another?
Well, I think for us, it's a lot of it. We put a lot on our receivers mentally, but also physically as well. We block with our receivers quite a bit, so you can't just be the guy running, and catching corner routes or dig routes. That's a key part of it. Obviously, it's a big part of the job. But we talk about the pass game. It takes all 12 to get a guy open. Especially in this league, it takes 12 guys to the pass blocking, the quarterback, the back. Those guys all doing the right thing, and then your guy next to you doing the right thing. So it's are you sound? Are you in the right spots? Can the quarterback depend on you? And then can we depend on you to block?
So if everything goes right, what do you want to see on Friday night when it comes to execution and evaluation from your unit?
Yeah, the biggest thing, I think we just want to be able, just like any game, you want to be able to stay on the field longer. I mean, we had a couple, 3 2-and-outs in that game, so we want to make sure that we can get, because the hardest thing is that first down. You get that first down, you can kind of get into a rhythm. The more chances you have to score because you have more plays, so we try to get more plays, the better, so just to sustain some drives, especially early.
Coach, appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you.
I am looking forward to year 2, the whole coaching staff, especially for Mark Mueller with the guys. I think a lot of you out there are as well. More texts coming in, just people about Harris, how much Harris and the starters will play. Joy says, I wouldn't play him. Yeah, maybe they won't. I don't know, but I think they will because they got to get some of that offensive line, the starters in there. Kev says at least a quarter, maybe a half, like Don said. Yeah, you can have your say, 936-6262. Prairie.